Imagine this nightmare. Colossal titans stepping on millions of people, leading the remains of the human race towards their unescapable doom. Nowhere to go, nowhere to run away, to hide. And yet, just a few moments before a mother descends, a man in the crowd is able to grab her child. The man hands the kid over to the next person, and that person throws the baby to the next. The crowd keeps pushing the remaining last ray of hope and life to safety, despite their end fast approaching. This scene in Attack on Titan will forever be ingrained in my head, until the day I die. The kind of imagery that so perfectly and horrifically portrays our cycle of life, death, hatred, freedom, and survival. A metaphor that encapsulates the underlying nature of mankind, the arguments that the scene contextualizes, and the entirety of the series' purpose and theme from its early conception. I have to admit, I was not prepared for how this final chapter was going to make me feel. I honestly can't contain my excitement, and it's so unreasonably hard to express my exact emotions considering how uneven and conflicted I still am inside, despite enough time has passed for me to be more cohesive. There's no way to start this video by not mentioning the incredible, outstanding work that was put into the animation, the choreography of the action, the direction, flawless cinematography, the phenomenal and heartbreaking voice acting that layered even more these already emotional moments, these already brilliant scenes, and the perfectly timed score that made my skin crawl. Listening to the entire rendition of past tracks and newest ones throughout the final episode, so well thought out and pieced together, was truly a blessing. I can't even begin to express how happy it made me feel as a longtime fan of the anime. Gosh, it was so good. Everything was put into the finale. All the love and passion from the crew, the lead director and team of animators. They deserve all the praise they can get in the world for realizing these iconic scenes in the manga and making them even more iconic for years to come. Seriously, considering the truly hellish production cycle that they had to go through for so long, they should be put on a pedestal at this point. They're the true heroes behind this show's quality and impact around the world. The entirety of the final season was on another level, but the way the finale was handled was just truly special. By the time I reached the final battle between Armin and Eren in their colossal titan forms, the composition, score, emotion, and imagery, all of these elements combined made me feel like I was witnessing something that I was never meant to see. It was bone-chilling to say the least. I'll never forget it. Ever. Imagery like this, the baby being held high amidst the rumbling in the background, or the scene where Armin and Zeke share this beautiful moment that negates the nihilistic option that is presented to end the conflict and which refutes the rumbling itself, a simple memory of three childhood friends running towards a tree, feeling the warm breeze, the peace and quiet of the moment. Two friends, unrelated by blood, sharing a father-son moment by throwing a baseball at each other, represented in such a simple and effective way when Zeke sees Armin holding that same ball in his hand, and yet to Armin, it's one of the leaves that flew on that windy day he was trying to catch up to Eren and Mikasa. That moment, and the way it was written and executed, was so simple, so small in the grand scheme of things, and yet was the key to stopping the rumbling. Because of how those small moments we experience in our lives, no matter how insignificant they may be to others, or in the grand scale of the universe, are the very reason why we keep on living, why we keep on fighting to live. They matter to us. They're the pieces which compose our happiness that sheds a light on the darkness that creeps in at us. They're everything. Even if they're subtle, even if we end up forgetting them in the long run, because they remind us of how joyful, how beautiful, even for a brief moment, life can truly be. Armin is by far the MVP of this episode. That scene in the grassy field and the way Armin describes it to Zeke reflects not only his entire character arc and journey, but it contextualizes his speech to Eren later on. Armin feels he's equally responsible for setting Eren on this path, because he's always allowed him to take the lead, always put his faith, his hopes and dreams on Eren's shoulders, because he saw strength in his friend, a fierce will he believed himself to lack in order to keep pushing forward. worth. Because he didn't believe in his own abilities, he simply decided to follow Eren, like Mikasa did. Although for different reasons, a codependence he had to break free from in order to stop the rumbling, as it was brilliantly foreshadowed in Eren's words to Levi back in Season 3, when he tells him Armin is the one who's going to save humanity, not him. Armin's voice actress was this time around the one who stole the whole show. The sheer desperation and pain you felt in her voice was flat out frightening for how raw and genuine her delivery felt. Mikasa being the final piece to freeing Eren and all the remaining subjects of Ymir from the Titan curse, I thought was equally well executed. It really had to be her, the character who landed the ending blow to Eren. But more than that, how Isayama tied her own aspirations to the founder Ymir's ultimate motivation didn't feel as out of the blue or retconning as it could have been. I don't think when Eren tells Armin that the reason Ymir continued King Fritz's will was out of love for him should be viewed at face value. The literal kind of love that was romantic and one-sided. At least the way I perceived it, in the moment and even before that, Ymir was a slave. We can assume for her entire life. King Fritz was more than just her master, he was her very reason to exist, her lord and savior to not only obey, but devote her entire existence to, as all tyrants made sure the population under their rule treated them as such holy beings, especially the percentage who were enslaved. That love and devotion wasn't true love in the sense she was blind to it, or she deeply cared for him in a tender and natural manner. It was born out of a mix of fear, duty, and obligation. She was molded from an early age to love this ruler as if he were some sort of god or father figure, to love him unconditionally, abide to his rule unconditionally, lay down her own life for him unconditionally. Whether you interpret the scene where Fritz is the one who actually took the spear and perished as the truth of what happened, or the way I viewed it as a visual representation of Ymir's ultimate regret of wishing that outcome had been the one she chose, it doesn't take away the fact that in either, Ymir was still enslaved to her circumstances and history, no matter how she felt about it in the end. I think it's important to shine a light on this one detail. She released those pigs in the farm out of her own will, to give them a freedom she could never have, one deep down she longed for, but could only project in others. I think this one scene tells us everything we need to know about this character and her ultimate motivation. The outcome would always be the same, because like Eren, she is as much of a slave to fate, to her life circumstances and cycle of war, as he was. If you ask me, the image of King Fritz's dying, not only it symbolizes her regret for not choosing her children instead of Fritz, preventing anyone from passing down her power and breaking free from his grasp long after any one of them was gone from the physical world, but it symbolizes the future she came to witness for the Eldian race. Because she could not save her children then, maybe now she can save her future children now, the current Eldians and future generations who might have a chance of a better tomorrow, similar to those pigs she set free, even though she knew it was forbidden. A future free from the Titans and King Fritz's dark shadow, all part of her very being that still lingers on after centuries. At some point trapped in the paths, like Eren, she must have had the ability to see into the future, seen Mikasa be the one who severs Eren's head and brings an end to the rumbling. Ymir can't have Armin and the others kill Eren before Mikasa, because she needs Mikasa to make up her own mind first. Like Eren mentioned, and it's worthy to point this out, as I think this piece of information was put in there for a reason by Isayama, living inside the paths, there's no sense of time moving forward, slowly or faster, until the objective ahead is finished. She couldn't break the Eldians free from the curse and needed Zeke, Eren, and Mikasa to do so, because she herself was bound by that impulsive moment she made that day when she threw herself at the spear, by her sense of duty to King Fritz and her people in that time of war and conquest she was born in. And after she spent enough time in the paths by fate, the determined path she saw in the future. Or maybe it was not about fate at all, and Ymir didn't break the curse only for duty alone, and knowing Eren's memories as they were connected, she looked at someone like Mikasa and saw the complete opposite of her. Someone who, despite sharing immense loyalty for Eren, still had the will to carry out what she couldn't, as her love was the complete opposite of the only love she knew her entire life, one strong enough to take precedent over her children's. Whichever one is it, although I think it's a prior due to the narrative implying the headaches were always tied to Ymir, Mikasa breaks the cycle that King Fritz started. Her love for Eren was so pure and honest that the only way to both save the innocent lives that remain in the wake of devastation and free Eren from his burden is to say goodbye to the Eren responsible for the rumbling and remember the good parts of his self that saved her on multiple occasions. A brilliant parallel from the scene all the way back in season 1 when she thinks Eren is dead, but instead of quitting and letting this random titan take away her hope, she keeps fighting, despite him no longer being there, proving she will still be able to live her life without him, despite the grief and the pain. Everything else may have been premeditated by Eren, by Ymir, but Mikasa's choice was not. It was born out of genuine love. That's what broke the curse, broke the cycle for that moment. Finally, evening the odds between the Eldian race and the rest of the world. Ymir sees Mikasa doing what she couldn't 2,000 years ago. She saves humanity from the destructive power of the founding Titan. She sees herself the person she could have been, should have been, in Mikasa. A chance for a future not born out of blind obedience and oppression. A chance only Mikasa's actions in comparison to everyone else's, even Armin, could have made possible. From the information provided before and after this episode's release, the creator Haijime Isayama was much more hands-on than usually in adapting the finale, even having a hand on the script, and fleshing out some of the details missing in key manga panels. It seems slight things were changed or removed, and certain dialogue and information was added, like in scenes like the one with Eren and Armin. A lot of what transpired was still very much the same as it was in the manga, but Armin's speech to Eren, for example, about sharing the load of the same blame and sin they're both responsible for was much more fleshed out. It's no big secret, the Eren breaking down moment was memed to death when the panel came out. Even I had seen the image circulating a lot before I even got to that moment in the anime, and yes, it felt a little strange when it suddenly happened, mainly because very purposefully it was meant to be abrupt for both Armin and the audience, who've grown accustomed to this cold and calculated Eren who's been hidden away in the shadows. Eren, like he's shown in past episodes, feels sick about the act he's going to commit in the future. He's torn about what in part he has to do, but not only can't because the future is already set and can't be changed, we know as a character he cares deeply about his friends, his squad, his home. They're the only family he has left. It wasn't surprising because we could already figure out in the expression on his face when Mikasa asks Eren if he truly realizes what he's done when declaring war on Marley, killing all those innocent citizens in the process, when he's asked to come home, when he reacts to Sasha's death, when he tells Mikasa he always hated her and her love for him was a product of the Ackerman's lineage, even though Zeke states there was nothing to indicate that. You know that deep down, all that Eren wanted was to keep them safe, to move on with their lives at his expense. Can you blame Eren for breaking down? Nothing in this show has ever felt more real. His reaction felt strange in the beginning because that's how sometimes emotions that have been bottled inside under intense stress can come out and explode. Few times is it ever gradual or well anticipated. It can come out of nowhere, unannounced, because the pain they cause is already too exponential to hold it within. Eren has been caught in a psychological limbo. Before the rumbling ever happened, he had to live with the knowledge he would be the one to start such atrocities. He would be the one responsible for the death of fellow Paradise Islanders, indirectly responsible for so many dead members of his squad, Eldians living in Marley, innocent Marleyans, and people from different nations and cultures around the world. Be responsible for Sasha's death, Anji's death, the royal children and entire family except Rod Race, all without knowing yet the exact details on how he manipulates those events. Until Zeke has him go back to the past through the paths. After that, on top of that, he has to realize he was also responsible for his own mother's death, as it was foreshadowed beforehand, in order to set him out on this path. In order to process all of this, he reverts back to his childlike innocence and replaces the apocalyptic scenario below him with a paradise of his own, appropriately covered in clouds to hide the hell he created. At this point, when Eren talks to Armin, psychologically, he's completely burned out. He can't hide all of that anymore. For the first time in a very long time, Eren is finally honest with his friend and confesses all of his deep and genuine emotions. He loves Mikasa, but he can't be with her. He wants her to not forget him despite him forcing her to do so because he doesn't want her to suffer and be burdened by his sins. Of course, he's being selfish in that moment because he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want his family to be the ones to kill him in the end, an end he foresaw in his visions, I might add. The vision he shares with Mikasa, the alternative that could never happen, that's what Eren would have probably chosen if his inner drive and predetermined future didn't shackle him. Armin was right. In terms of fate and in terms of Eren's own nature, he's always been a slave to freedom. He's never been able to look past the horror beyond the sea like Armin and Mikasa did. That's exactly why he knows they're the ones who can try and build a better tomorrow without him. He's not the hero of this story. He doesn't want to be. He can't, but that doesn't take away the fact that he is still human, despite the atrocities, his sins. We're not meant to sympathize with Eren, we're just meant to see the human behind the monster. So no, it didn't surprise me in the slightest Eren would have had a reaction like this. The main theme that Haijime Isayama leaves us with for Attack on Titan's narrative is that no matter what we do, human beings will always be at war with each other. Even if peace lasts longer than most other times throughout history, and society evolves in many positive ways due to the actions of a few brave people, war and new conflicts will always be a part of the cycle because they are a part of human nature. I honestly applaud the author for committing to that theme and give us a darker ending amidst the hope, because he's not trying to force a happy ending where everything is resolved down our throats. He's not trying to tell you this is how we can achieve peace for all time. The world that he created in AOT that very much mirrors our own isn't that utopic, and he's not afraid to point that out. Even if Eren tried to end the conflict for future generations in such drastic ways, indirectly he inspired the divide in the remaining parts of the world, no matter how good his intentions were. Ending the Titans will not keep humans from finding new ways and new power to destroy each other, as we got a hint at the start of the final season. So, with all of that being said, I think it's time for me to dedicate this time in ranking my favorite seasons/specials individually. As a proper goodbye to this series, I think it's safe to say will be, for a long time, one of my all-time favorites. Be sure to share yours in the comments as well. Keep in mind, there is no particular season I've disliked, no second I spent with this series that I didn't love. So at number 8, I have Season 1, at number 7, Season 2, 6, Season 3, Part 1, 5, Final Season Part 1, number 4, Season 3 Part 2, and number 3, The Final Season Part 3, and number 2, The Final Season Final Episode, and at number 1, The Final Season Part 2. If I was counting just seasons in general, I would rank them chronologically, funny enough, as I think they only got better and better as time went on. Season 1, 2, 3, and the final season. It's been a huge pleasure experiencing from the very beginning this once-in-a-lifetime story, beautifully told by the brilliant Haijime Isayama and incredibly realized by a group of insanely talented animators and directors. Thank you for your consistent passion and hard work, even in the face of hell. Thank you sincerely. And thank you all for sharing this incredible moment with me. Thank you for watching.